Oh, we are writing today using things called story cubes. So there's six-sided dice that have random pictures on them. The writing exercise that I've used these for is where you grab a random amount, roll them, and you attempt to make some sort of short story that could even grow into a longer story using the images in there. And I also love this Beauty and the Beast print my friend got for me. Hi, Hazel. Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I started a little early because I was trying to figure out the camera. Apologies if anyone got confused on the link. As I said, this is my first ever YouTube live. So I immediately messed up, but I mean, that's what we do. That's how we learn. That's what these writing exercises are for. The only way to learn is by doing. So to start, I'm going to roll this really fancy pink agate six-sided die. It's from Misty Mountain Gaming. It's fancy. Yes, I'm a nerd and I have fancy dice. And this will tell me how many story cubes to pick out. Of course, 6. Naturally. So I'm going to pick them at random because there's more than one type of story cube in here. Story cubes have, like, there's a Batman set, for example, that I didn't put in here. There's fantasy, there's mystery. It's whatever kind you want to buy. And so I just mixed together a bunch of them. Okay, so I have my 6. They appear to be some of the fantasy, some of the just random, and I think one of the mystery detective one. Sorry if this noise is awful on the microphone. I have no idea what it sounds like. Okay, this will be weird. So our first item is this little hunched over, I'm going to assume it's a sorcerer. Next is a fish. Next, ironically, is a six-sided die. Oh, thank you, Hazel, for confirming that the sound is good. I was worried it'd be irritating. I'm using a Yeti microphone. Of course, that's an annoying noise. Well, let me silence that from happening again. A strand of DNA. A forest. And the last one is a fountain. So my first thought, and I have Microsoft Word open on my laptop right now, which unfortunately you can't see. My first thought, and if you have any story ideas based off of what you saw, please feel free to put them in the chat. My first thought, and this is the beauty of these, it's random, is a stooped over old sorcerer is going to be wandering through the woods, come across a fountain where he's going to meet a magic fish, play a gambling game that involves dice, and he's trying to get the magic fish to change his DNA to make him more powerful. So, how does that sound as a story idea? It sounds weird, I acknowledge. That's why I like the story dice so much. So let's see. Let's start generic. Once upon a time, there was an ancient sorcerer. Anyone got any good names? Named, let's see. There was an ancient sorcerer named, I have an idea. Sorcerer Hemi. Okay. Hazel, I was going to use random name generator, but I like Hemi. There was an ancient sorcerer named Hemi the Great. Hemi the Hilarious. We're going to go with Great for now. Change it later if we want. Once upon a time, there's an ancient sorcerer. I'm moving the dice around off to the side to make sure I'm getting each one. Named Hemi the Great. Hemi had traversed the land for many decades. Since this is a first draft, there will be significantly more show than tell. Showing is when you know, someone's happy. So you say, she smiled from ear to ear. Whereas telling is, she was happy. There's going to be a lot of showing in a first draft. So once upon a time, there was an ancient sorcerer named Hemi the Great. Hemi had traversed the land for many decades, creating, no, we're going to say building a reputation as a powerful and just mage. This is the point in my writing where I would Google if there's a difference between mage and sorcerer, and right now we're going to pretend there isn't. He had bested many foes, saved many nations, and won many battles. But he'd grown old and stooped with age, as happens to all mortals. New paragraph. He had heard of a magic fountain in the misty woods where a wish-granting fish named... Wish-granting fish. What's a good name for a wish-granting fish? Wish-granting fish named... We're going to go with Henry for right now, and we will change it later, just because I find the name Henry kind of amusing for this. Or a wish-granting fish named Henry lived. If you could survive the perilous trek through the ancient woods, locate the Fountain of Henry. Can you imagine something actually called the Fountain of Henry? Like you're reading an epic fantasy and it's just the Fountain of Henry. Through the ancient ones, locate the Fountain of Henry, and then best Lord Henry in a game of his choosing. You would be granted any wish within Henry's power. My apologies, I am freezing. I don't know what season it is where everybody else is, but here on the west coast of the US, it is winter. And heater or no heater. Ouch, it's chilly. Yes, any wish within the fish's power. He's not quite as laid out as the genie in Aladdin, for example. He doesn't tell you all the rules up front. You just kind of got to wish, and then I'll tell you if you can make it. Because Henry, Lord Henry, the fish wish, is a bit of a jerk. Why else would he make you do all this stuff for his power? Or possibly he's just sick of dealing. Oh no, what do you mean you can't see me? I don't even know how to fix that. Can you see me now? I hope you can still hear me. Well, hopefully everyone can hear me, because I suppose seeing me isn't the most important thing. Oh, good. You can't hear me either. Wonderful. Can anyone else hear me, or is it just Hazel having problems? Because I can still see myself. Anyone else hear me? I used to work at a call center, and Rob can see and hear me. Hazel, that might be your connection. Thank you so much for answering that, Rob. I'm going to continue with the story. Please flag me if you lose audio again. So let's see here. We were ragging on Henry, Lord Henry the fish. So I'll go back with Hemi. Again, there's going to be a lot more telling. Oh, good job, Hazel. A lot more telling than showing right now. So we're going to just tell you what Hemi wants. Hemi, after a long and illustrious career. I can't spell the word illustrious suddenly. Illustrious, there we go. Career was not handling aging very well. He detested the spots forming on his hands and arms. The wrinkles splashed across his face were an affront to his power. Hi, Eloise. And worst of all, his power was waning as he aged. For those who are just joining, we rolled 6 story dice, and we got a stooped old wizard, a fish, a forest, a dice, a fountain, and a strand of DNA. And we are going to follow an ancient sorcerer named Hemi the Great. Hemi is going to go through the magical, what did I call it? I've already forgotten. Misty Woods. This is why we take notes about settings and characters as we go. He's going to trek through Misty Woods to meet Lord Henry the Fish, who's at a fountain. And if you can make it through the woods and best Henry in a betting game, he will give you a wish of any choice, or of your choice, as long as it's in his power. So Hemi, after a long and illustrious career, was not handling aging very well. He detested the spots forming on his hands and arms. The wrinkles splashed across his face were an affront to his, instead of power, I'm going to say prestige. And worst of all, his power was waning. He woke up at the crack of dawn. And as I told other people, Eloise, there's going to be a lot of telling in this first draft. He woke up at the crack of dawn, partook in a simple meal of cheese and bread, then loaded up his traveling gear and left. Do we think Hemi the Great, he'd probably live in a manor, wouldn't he? He's seeming like he's kind of a pompous old sorcerer, and if he's as great as I'm making him out to be, he'd live in a manor. I keep picturing a cottage. We're going to go with manor. Then loaded up his traveling gear and left his manor behind to begin his, sorry, my computer is trying to install an update to my printer, which no thank you. Yes, I would like to exit. To begin his journey to Lord Henry's fountain. The Misty Woods was, I'm gonna go to the north. To the north of his homeland of, banging the keyboard didn't give me a good name. His homeland of looks like I'm trying to spell Korea. His homeland of Limeland. I'm going to just put in a bunch of terrible names right now. For those of you that don't know, I'm not good at names. The Misty Woods is the north of his homeland of Limeland. So he donned his heaviest cloak. The miles, Homeldorf. I like Homeldorf. We're going to call it Homeldorf. I spelled it Homeldorf, but Homeldorf. The miles dragged as he forced his old, tired body forward one step at a time. Since this is a very short story, we're not going to have a Lord of the Rings where we talk about him walking for an entire book. Sorry to insult the Lord of the Rings to any Lord of the Rings fans, but I did not enjoy that part of the series. The miles dragged as he forced his old tired body forward one step at a time. When the weather or his exhaustion, I cannot spell, exhaustion, threatened to, excuse me, threatened to knock him down, he'd remember why he started this torture. He had to get his wish. Soon, after many days of rigorous travel and at least one mental breakdown. Remember, he's a pompous old man, and there's no way a pompous old man's getting through this easily. Soon after many days of rigorous travel and at least one mental breakdown, Hemi stood at the edge of the Misty Woods. He made camp for the evening, taking this time to rest and recharge. He checked on his staff, refilled his canteen from a nearby river, and went over all battle spells. I'm so glad that you guys can't see what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And went over all the battle spells that he'd ever used before. The misty woods were said to be perilous and full of monsters. Sorry, moving the screen down. And he wanted to be ready. As he settled into his bedroll for the evening, after putting out his fire, he heard a noise. Let me know if anyone has any good ideas for a noise or for the first obstacle he's going to face in the woods. So far I've got a vague idea of maybe some sort of something silly like a sprite, like a trickster sprite, and he's going to fall into a hole with like leaves covering over it. For some reason, I'm imagining this as almost like a fantasy comedy story, probably because we have Hemi and Henry. Got a lot of H names in here. As he settled in his bedroll for the evening after putting out his fire, he heard a noise from behind the tree line. He froze. All of his instincts on high, senses, not instincts. Senses on high alert. So what do we think? Should something pop out of the woods, or should he just have, ooh, what if it is a trickster sprite, it's at the entrance of the woods, and it just messes with him all night. It does the weirdest noises. I'm low-key thinking fart sounds, but that could be because I've been around too many children lately. He froze all of his senses on high alert. He heard a twig snap. Then he heard what sounded like a high-pitched giggle. Manipulating plants. I mean, a sprite would probably have that power. And it sounded like a high-pitched giggle. The sound was sinister, filled with venom instead of joy. The sounds paused for several long minutes, and his eyelids began to droop. As soon as he started to fall asleep, something touched his feet. He sprang up from his bedroll. The only thing keeping him silent was years of experience. Let's see. It was years of experience. We're going to do a slight time skip around here because I want him to fall into a pit now. He got no sleep that night. Instead, every time he started to drift off, something else strange would happen. A bush would rustle. A branch would move. Something would grab him, but when he looked, He'd seen nothing there. Finally, the sun began to lighten the sky, the light burning his blurry, droopy eyes. Rolling his shoulders and stretching out his body, he shook off the... I'm just going to throw in the word tiredness here. Shook off the tiredness. Reaching into his rucksack, he pulled out a potion of invigoration. The dark brown liquid was bitter, but never failed to perk him up. See, when you're having your morning coffee, you need to start calling it the potion of invigoration. I myself cannot drink coffee. You wouldn't like me on coffee. Never done crack, but I imagine it's a similar experience for the people around me. To perk him back up. As energy began to flow through his jittery veins, he took a moment to scarf down another simple breakfast of travel fare before heading towards the tree line, which is not one word. Just figured that out. Before heading towards the tree line. For those who are just joining, nope, they already left. Cool, never mind. But we're following a sorcerer named Hemi who's old and doesn't want to be old. And he's going to go make a wish at a pond or a fountain in the woods. It's a whole thing. I'll be posting an edited version at alexashays.com under writing exercises. Anyways, as energy began to flow through his jittery veins, he took a moment to scarf down another simple breakfast of travel fare before heading towards the tree line. He paused once he reached it, examining the trees. In the light of day, they no longer looked so menacing. But he knew better after the restless night that he'd had. Shrugging, he decided that it looked safe, and seeing no signs of trickery, entered the misty woods. I'm debating having him immediately fall into a trap pit. There's something about this character who is like, I haven't even described him yet, but I just picture him as the most arrogant butthead, which is not the word I was going to use. Like, I just picture him as very pompous, and it makes me want to take him down a notch, this Hemi the Great. The fact that he lives in a manor and he is terrified of aging, that's some like, my only first thought is Voldemort, but I don't like to compare anything to him. But, yeah, you know what? Let's launch him into a pit. We're going to launch him into a pit to the Misty Woods. The first hour in the woods was pleasant. He found the path. He's totally like a male Mother Gothel. 100%. I've decided now he has black hair. We'll figure out his description. We'll pepper it throughout this. The first hour in the woods was pleasant. He found the path to be simple and clean. He wasn't sure who'd made the path or if he should follow it but he still sensed nothing malevolent. As he walked, he entertained himself by reminiscing about the many battles he'd helped win. As he was trying to decide how to best portray himself in his future memoir he was going to write. How many people have said they were going to write a memoir and then didn't? Portray himself in his future memoir he was going to write. He stepped forward and the ground gave away. Is it gave away or gave away? Away or way? We're going to say gave away for right now. If I wasn't live, I would be Googling this. He stepped forward and the ground gave away. He let out a startled shriek as air whizzed past him and he plunged forward. Gave way. Thank you, Eloise. He let out a startled shriek as air whizzed past him and he plunged down, not forward. My editor can attest to having to say, hey, it's this direction, as he plunged downwards. We're just going to very bluntly say chin length, black hair slapped him in the face, distracting him as it got in his eyes. He whipped his staff in front of him and managed to cast a hover charm. What they call it, a charm? Hovering spell just before he hit the bottom. Instead of being hit by the foul brown hook at the bottom, his senses were instead hit with the rank odor of dung. Whoever had dug this dreadful trap had filled the bottom with dung, as one does. It's a trickster sprite, and that just seems like something one would do that isn't overly malevolent. Letting out a curse, he hovered back up to the edge of the hole, coming to land a few feet away. Quick, somebody come up with a name for a small little green trickster sprite. Don't say greenie, although I do like that. He checked on his rucksack, and fortunately, nothing had fallen out of it. He was in the process of readjusting his robes when he heard the same giggle from last night, though this time it was more childlike than sinister. Sighing, he turned in the direction of the sound. Whoever's there, show yourself. Don't have time for this nonsense. The giggling grew louder and was soon accompanied by the sound of snapping twigs coming from all around him. He sighed again. Come now. Come now. I don't have time for this. He snarled, the tip of his old wooden walking stick starting to glow orange. If you don't come out, I'll make you. If any of you have ever played D&D and you think about, I think it's the wizard suddenly just casting fireball. That's what I'm picturing right now. If you don't come out, I'll make you. Waiting another moment as the sounds around him grew, he muttered another spell, and a circle of fire erupted out from around him, burning everything in its path. When he heard the startled scream of I'm not going to say the startled. When he heard a startled scream of pain, he called the spell and doused the flames before they could spread. That's the joy of being an old, experienced wizard or sorcerer. You can, sorry, I was moving the dice again. You can recall your fire instead of, burning everything down. For anyone who's ever wondered about pantsing and plotting, the two different types of writing, plotting where you have, a general idea of what you're going to do, you have an A to B. This is what pantsing is like. You just have a sort of idea and then you just write and you just vomit out details and you kind of hope everything works out in the end. It spread. When he heard a startled scream of pain, he recalled the spell and doused the flames before they could spread. Rustling could be heard before a little green man, I don't know why I'm picturing it as a little green person, popped out from the bushes around him. He was wiping soot off of his pants while scowling up at Hemi. You didn't have to charbroil the woods, he said. You were the one who tried to trap me in dung. I cannot type. Hemi replied with a shrug. Now you will show me the way to Henry the Wishfish is fountain. Now, the further I get into this really weird story, the less I want to put this on my website. Put a big disclaimer. This was freestyle pantsing on a YouTube live. Now you will show me the way to Henry the Wishfish's fountain. It doesn't work that way, the little green sprite said. Can't just show you the way. You have to make the journey yourself. What was that phrase? Maybe it was the friends we made along the way, something akin to that. The true prize is the strength you get from overcoming the obstacles along the way. Hemi rolled his eyes. Hard pass. He leveled the staff at the sprite. The tip glowing orange again. The prize is with Henry. I typed shoe. Show me the way or I'll burn you to a crisp. I never said Hemi was a good guy. He's essentially Mother Gothel, but, you know, a little less cool. Fine. Fine. The sprite side. Follow me. Floating up into the air, he began. I don't know why you identify with Hemi, Eloise. I think it's the eye rolling and it's the I don't want to deal with this crap attitude, which I relate to that the older I get. So follow me. Floating up into the air, he began down the same path Hemi had just been on. And to prevent any tricks, Hemi began. Let's... I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say. And to prevent any tricks, Hemi began. Let's... I don't like this phrase, but let's color you. It's going to be like a magic glowing circle of that fire energy. I don't like the phrase color you though. It's a very jarring phrase. I wouldn't use it in an actual published story. But if any tricks Hemi began, let's color you. Before the sprite could let, I wrote good for some reason, could let out a sound. A glowing orange circle wrapped around his neck. He gasped when he tried to grab it, pulling back burned hands. Hemi the Great's kind of a butt. You don't think it's a better phrase than color you. Pulling back burned hands. If you get me to Henry safely, I'll remove the spell. The sprite glared at the stooped old man and continued down the path wordlessly. They encountered other sprites and traps. But the sprite saved Hemi from all of them. The other sprites of many different colors stared in horror at the orange glowing collar around their comrade. I keep thinking coworker. I keep imagining these sprites having like a coworker relationship. That's carryover in Plant Mischief. And the customers trapped him. That's how I'm imagining this. Maybe I've been working in corporate America too long. Can you imagine little sprite cubicles out in the woods? I gotta get more traps ready for Henry the CEO. Anyways, I call her other comrades. I thought coworkers, but comrades neck. No one wanted to face the same fate so they melted back into the woods. Hemi could constantly feel the lingering stares of the magical folk, but chose to ignore it. This kind of makes me think of somebody who goes into a video game and gets like super overpowered and then goes back to one of the earlier levels and just like, oh, what's it called? I'm just gonna say it just plows through it all. Let's see. Overpowered, but chose to ignore it. Soon the sound of tinkling water could be heard. Hemi's heart leapt up into his throat. It's terrible phrasing. Hemi's heart leapt up to his throat. Speed run! Thank you. That is the phrase I was looking for, but was not coming up with. Hemi's heart leapt up to his throat. It's pounding loud in his ears. Soon he would get his wish. Okay. We got 2 of the dice down. I keep checking. Soon he would get his wish. Another... No. The green sprite stopped beside a curtain of hanging flowered vines. I wrote Vince's. I just wanted to share that typo with you. The green sprite stopped beside a curtain of hanging flowered vines. Lord Henry is beyond these vines. I can take you no further, he said. Only travelers. We're going with travelers, more like contestants, combatants. Only travelers can enter beyond this point to partake in the trial. Thank you, Hemi said curtly. Once I go in and verify that Henry is there, I will release you. The sprite rolled its eyes. Hemi approached the vines, spread them apart, and gasped. In front of him was the most grandiose fountain he'd ever laid eyes on. It was somehow see-through and glittery, despite looking as if it was carved from stone. A large statue of a leaping fish stood in its center. A stream, there we go. This is what it looks like when somebody is writing, by the way. It's just a lot of, they're going, what's that word? Does this work? Is this physically possible? Will physics allow this? There's a lot of weird Googling, and as everyone knows, that leads to, oh, look, a YouTube video. Anyways, a large statue of leaping fish stood in its center. A stream of crystal clear water. I was shooting from its mouth in an arch, whatever. This looks like the place, Hemi said. I release you. The orange collar broke in two, and the green sprite disappeared immediately back into the woods, pausing only a moment to make a rude gesture at the old man. As he should. If somebody wraps a glowing golden collar thing around your neck, you should 100% flip them off. Or in this case, make a rude gesture. I don't know if they flip off in this world. We haven't been in this world long enough to know their ways. By the way, we're at 1,418 words of Hemi and his journey. The old man, shaking his head with a chuckle at the sprite's audacity. Hemi walked to the edge of the fountain. He circled it, looking for any clue as to what to do next. On the second pass by, he realized that there was a button carved. I keep spelling it craved. Carved into the stone. It was subtle, but was obviously different from the rest of the carvings. I wish we'd gotten something cooler than these 6 images on this one, but whatever. It was obviously different from the rest of the carvings. He pressed the circle and felt it give. Silence. There were several seconds of silence before a rumbling began. The water ceased its tinkling as the fountain shut down. Hemi stepped back, his stomach tightening. He put his staff between himself and the now shuddering fountain. A shielding spell on the tip of his tongue. There was a sudden explosion of water. And once it all settled, I don't know how to describe what I'm thinking of right this minute. And we don't have a lot of time left, although I feel like this is just going to go until I finish it now. I need him to meet Henry, which he's about to. There's a sudden explosion of water, and once it all settled, there was a sudden explosion as the water in the base of the fountain erupted upwards, showering Hemi. It felt like normal water, but it felt like normal water. He wiped his eyes and hesitantly went back to the edge of the now serene and tinkling fountain. Glancing in, he jumped back at the colossal fish now circling fountain. It barely fit in the water, so large was its body. I don't know if all fish, like if you call the fish at the fin at the top a dorsal fin, but so large was its body. Its dorsal fin stuck up out of the water, reminding him of the terrifying sea creatures he'd encountered on his many sea voyages. Those creatures ate men. Did this one? Lord Henry, he said in a loud, falsely confident voice, I come to try to gain a wish. I'm not used to typing on my laptop, I've just realized, and my fingers are starting to hurt. Maybe I'm getting old too. I'm just like Hemi. Lord Henry said in a loud, falsely confident voice, I came to try to gain a wish. The fish's head turned slowly towards him, and it swam over to the edge. It lifted its front half out of the water, using its large fins to hold itself up, which is such a weird cartoony image. Water cascaded down its rainbow shimmering scales. I am Lord Henry, the fish said, its voice low and echoey, which is a word I've decided. Oh, it is a word. I just spelled it wrong. The other half of writing. I'm Lord Henry, the fish said, its voice low and echoey. Who comes to challenge me? Striking a pose. Picturing just, striking a pose and throwing his cloak back. Hemi declared loudly, it is I, Hemi the Great. I have traveled long to reach you. You don't look so great to me, the fish said, looking up and down the old man's stooped form. I'll bet I can, by Eloise, I'll bet I can guess what your wish is for, it snarked. Again, this is a magical comedy. Can we just get to the trial? Sure, the fish said with a chuckle. It swam down to the bottom of the fountain. So you got fish and fountain. I got left as the dice and the DNA block. It swam down to the bottom of the fountain and came back with a brown bag in its mouth. It spat the bag onto the edge of the fountain towards Hemi. Take out the dice, the fish commanded. Hemi grabbed the bag, finding 2 6-sided dice within. Leave one there and take one yourself. Hemi did as commanded. We will roll dice at the same time, and the highest number wins. Wait, seriously? The sorcerer asked, his eyebrows shooting up. That's it? That's it, the fish said, grabbing, I cannot spell. Again, I'm super glad nobody can see what I'm trying to type. Grabbing the die in his mouth. He motioned with his head for Hemi to come closer. He raised a fin, then slapped it down onto the water. Hemi took this as a sign to roll his dice. It clattered onto the edge. He clutched his staff so hard as he waited for the die to settle that his knuckles were white. A 6. He looked over at what the fish had rolled. A 4. I win, he exclaimed. I get my wish now, yes? The fish seemed to smile, as much as a fish can. There was a sly glint in its eye. Of course. What is your wish? Hemi took several long moments to think over his answer. He wanted to try to prevent any wish loopholes. I wish to never age and to retain my health and power for all of eternity. I wish to never age. I wish to never trying to figure out how to say his wish exactly. Fun fact, I would get trapped by every single wishing clause. If there was a loophole, I would not find it. I would get my ankle caught in the loophole and yeet myself to my death. I would do terrible in a fantasy land. I wish to go back to... I wish to turn back my body to when I was at my healthiest and strongest and to never age again. That works. Ooh, instead of saying body, I wish to turn back to when I was at my healthiest and strongest and to never age again. So let me understand this, the fish said. You want to be young and powerful forever, yes? Yes. but no tricks. Of course not. The fish grinned, which is a disturbing thought. The fish grinned. One strong and ageless body coming up. The fish began to glow a vibrant white, as did Hemi. Each turned into a glowing orb of light. Hemi's orb shot into the fountain, and Henry's onto the land. As the light settled, a new fish could be seen in the fountain. This fish was the same shade of brown as Hemi's cloak had been. Standing in Hemi's place was a fair young man with flowing auburn locks and a very dated outfit. What the heck? Hemi, the fish, demanded from his fountain. This isn't what I wished for. You wanted power and endless youth. The Henry the man. You never said you had to be human. I've waited centuries for someone selfish and ruthless enough to come to my fountain to make such a wish. Such a wish. Let me say decades instead of centuries. Decades. There's someone selfish and ruthless enough to come to my fountain to make such a wish and release me. Now it's your turn, Hemi the Great. He said great with sarcasm. Now I must be off. Have fun. He left, Hemi screaming behind him. So it is 8. So what I'm seeing is at the end, Hemi is now this stupid fish. And because he was so mean to his sprite coworkers, so to speak, they are going to help him the same way that they helped Henry. Because Henry was clever. Henry thought to himself, I got to make friends. I got tricked into this fish business. And so he ends up not getting the same kind of help Henry did. And I imagine Hemi will be trapped as a fish forever. So that was the story of Hemi the Great. We are currently at 2,193 words, and right here hurts on my hand. I'm not used to typing like this. I think my next setup, I will have my normal keyboard. So that is the story of Hemi the Great. Yay! I am thinking about trying to have lives a bit more often on all my different platforms and trying to use a software that will allow me to live stream to multiple platforms at once. And I'll work on having a more interesting background and working on this. But thank you all who came to my first ever live. I hope you had fun. We did hit every single one of the dice: the stooped old man, the forest, the fountain, the fish, the DNA, which was him being turned from human to fish, and the ironic dice. So that was fun. Thank you all for joining me. Have a good night or morning or afternoon. I have no idea where everybody is, but thanks for coming. Now to awkwardly figure out how to end this. Oh, there it is.